Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the CDL podcast channel. In this episode today, we are going to be reacting to a lot of the action that happened in the week one of the CDL season. It was a pretty crazy one, a lot of game fives, some round 11, some crazy OpTic scenarios. And we're also going to offer our predictions for the coming week two of stage one qualifiers, and just talk about everything that happened this weekend in general, because a lot of stuff went down, a lot of crazy matches, a lot of crazy clutches. Just a lot of action going on. But before we get into all that, Kyle, how you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. Had a little bit of an internet scare this morning. I was in contact with you. I said, we might have to push the podcast off. Ended up having to run out to two different stores to find the proper cable to restore power to our cable splitter. It's a big mess. Anyway, got it figured out. Winter Olympics are on. I know they're not the most popular thing nowadays, but I'm a big slappy for winter sports, so I've been pretty happy, just watching some late night sports and I'm ready to dive in though. I caught some of the CDL matches this weekend. Obviously we'll have more to talk about there, but yeah, I'm ready to get going.
Yeah, I'm also excited to get going because we've got maybe some teams that we didn't expect to have big weekends, have some big weekends, and some teams that we expected to kind of cruise by this weekend really struggle more than we thought they would. So the weekend definitely didn't go chalk. Pick'ems obviously weren't that good for either of us, to be honest, but we'll get into that later. Things are pretty crazy. But if you guys enjoy this episode, please be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe on YouTube, and drop a follow or a review on any of the audio platforms. We'd greatly appreciate that. All right, Kyle, you ready to just dive in? I think this week, there obviously isn't a ton of roster stuff yet because we're very, very early in the season. So there's not a ton of news to talk about, but are you ready to just jump into big picture reactions, kind of talk about some of the teams and maybe dive into a few specific matches here and there?
Yeah, let's send it.
All right. I think you all know where we have to start. Probably the story of the weekend. Kyle has probably a grin on his face right now, thinking about his rocker as one of the teams that took down OpTic. But OpTic coming into this weekend playing London and Minnesota, two teams we thought they're not like easy wins by any means. They're good teams, but in our grand scheme of things, we would figure OpTic would probably be the favorite in both of those matches, or at least should have a pretty good chance to win those. My mindset was OpTic should go at least 1-1 this weekend. I think either team could beat them, but they come out 0-2, two game 5, round 11 losses. I guess a lot of people, how social media is right now with OpTic losing twice to teams that they probably, in the eyes of at least the fans, should beat. Everybody's saying that they're the worst team of all time. Everybody's overreacting after two regular season week 1 matches. I think everybody will probably know where I stand on this, but I tend to be the more steady, I feel like, person with OpTic that doesn't get too high, too low. And you seem to be the guy that's willing to just bury them or ride with them. So I want to get your thoughts on it first.
No, I go back and audit the transcript of last podcast. I said something about like Scump with the hands on the head, in
You did.
reaction to losing. I don't know exactly what the context was, but yeah, I'd like to go back and listen to that. But yeah, just the worst possible case scenario for them. Obviously, um, the instant gut reaction is like, for me being a rocker stan, I'm like, wow, if OpTic win against the rocker, then we're riding the same storylines of rocker in their one match they lose to OpTic, so it would be like, oh, they suck. It definitely came down to it. That Berlin hardpoint, OpTic carried like
100%.
I think they had like almost a hill and a half lead going into the rotations there, and somehow Rocker clawed their way back. OpTic just playing not really fundamentally correct in order to sustain a lead of that magnitude, and then obviously game 5 round 11 some things didn't go their way. Illy kind of got caught out. Just like I said, worst possible case scenario. Am I hitting the panic button? Absolutely not. But it raises more questions than it answers, like it's
For
like,
sure.
we expected this team with Rambo coming into the coaching staff with Sender. I guess, people were expecting, myself included, this team to really come out and just be, fundamentally sound, playing correct. Obviously, this is the time of the year where OpTic tend to have a lot of success, grinding and learning the game super early, and just being better or having more stuff found out than other teams. But starting off this the seeding for Major 1 0-2, they're definitely going to have to win out in order to get favorable seeding, you would think.
Yeah, for sure. Because I mean, I can't imagine that they have too many like quote unquote easy matches left because Rocker and London are more towards middle of the pack, you'd think. So I gotta imagine they gotta at least play one of like your Surge, your Faze, your Ultra in this stage. I can't exactly remember what their schedule is. I believe they have Paris coming up this week. So I mean that's a match they absolutely have to win. First seeding. They cannot lose to Paris this coming week. But I'd say the same thing. I'm not at all ready to hit the panic button. I'd even venture to say, now this is obviously not how they want to start. They want to start 2-0 like every team did. But I would almost venture to say that in the long run, like right now, it's going to seem terrible. It might hurt them for this first major, but this almost might be a little bit of a help for them in the long run. Because, like you said, they're a fast starting team that tends to get off to super quick starts early on in the game. Like in Modern Warfare, I believe they won that first event. They went undefeated at the Minnesota like kickoff series, and then they won the first event. They typically are a team. I mean, they didn't win the first event last year and didn't finish top two, but like usually on average, OpTic is like the team that wins the first event with Scump, and they look like the best team or a top two, top three team early on. This year coming in, a lot of people said, scrims, they look like a top three team coming in. And then obviously they lose 2 round 11s. I think it almost might be a little bit of a blessing because maybe this will have the opposite effect. Typically, we see them start out hot and then they kind of get complacent and they don't practice as hard like they always say. They get almost too cocky with themselves and just don't put as much work in. And now they're 0-2, and it's like, holy crap, if we lose one more match in this regular season with only 3 left and we go 2-3, we're probably starting in losers bracket, or there's at least a potential that they're starting in losers bracket, or they get like a Faze or a Seattle round 1, which you don't want to be knocked into losers right away. So I think it could be a benefit if they use it as one, but it definitely is not an ideal start to the year. Although I'm really not too panicked on them at all.
Yeah, I mean it's easy to get, obviously the internet comes at them hard. You have a bunch of just down bad emoji tweeting and
Yeah.
meme tweeting at OpTic, and then you have, like the, oh, you'll be better, you'll get them next time, Sethi, and all, just like the classic like platitudes um for OpTic losing. And it just kind of just sours the mood that it's the first 2 matches of the year, and obviously that they lost in the kickoff classic as well. So they don't even have a series win under their belt
No.
in Vanguard, which is, and it's got to be a little frustrating. You just hope that their camp is pretty cool, calm and collected. I don't know. I mean, they really haven't won an actual legit tournament since Black Ops 4. I think it was the Las Vegas, I want to
Yep.
say.
Yeah. Las Vegas, the opening
I mean,
event of the
and then
year.
and then we can count those 8 team, the early LAN of when they won over in London
Hmm.
for the London homestand for Modern Warfare, and then they also won an online one. But I mean, like, just you want them to succeed so bad. It's it, like it or not, it's the team that's carrying the name, the
Yep.
franchising league of Call of Duty. So, um, you know, I would just want to see them succeed soon. And you can tell that the players are really frustrated as well.
Yeah, I think another interesting thing with both their series, when you actually like take a deep dive into the stats a little bit, and I heard Aches mention this a bit on the flank. That first series against London, when they get reverse swept, Scump had 97 kills and 89 deaths for a 1.1. Next highest on the team was Shotzi with 87. And then both Dashy and Illy were in the 70s. Illy had a 0.79, Dashy had a 0.91. That's pretty crazy to think, because like if you think who's going to be the kill leader on OpTic in every series, you'd say Dashy or Shotzi. In my opinion, Scump would probably be the third most likely, because Shotzi, we know he's MVP caliber player. He's the guy that's kind of getting probably the most engagements, you would figure, and he's probably going to have the most kills because he's just got a ridiculous skill level. And then Dashy, we know he just gets a ton of elims and always posts a really good KD. Well, he had a 0.91 in the first series and a 0.87 in that second series against Minnesota. And then Shotzi had 111. So once again, the whole panic button thing, I'm not ready to hit it. You're not ready to hit it. I think it's a pretty decent positive that Shotzzy absolutely tucked Minnesota in that final series with a 1.3 and at 111 kills. And I think it's also a good sign that Scump was by far their leading kill guy in the first series against London, because I think that shows that the subs are really heating up. They honestly just need Dashy to just kill her a little more and just play a little more like we know Dashy to play. I think he was trying to play so fundamental and trying to like change up his play style. I think he changed a little too much. I think Dashy, if he gets back to himself, I think this team will be just fine. But also along with OpTic, I think we've got to shout out your Minnesota rocker. It's not just OpTic lost this series. Minnesota won this series. I mean, OpTic may have thrown away that hardpoint lead in the map 4, but Minnesota did everything perfect in order for them to throw that away. And in that search and destroy, I mean, they iced up. Granted, I do think that OpTic, I thought when I saw Illy on that pinch and the B bomb side on Berlin, and I thought, oh my God, OpTic wins this because Illy had a free 2-piece. He would have, like, as he started hitting attach, he didn't have the bomb down. If he wouldn't have gotten meleeed by Standy, he would have killed attach without letting him get the bomb down. He probably would have died to Standy, I would think. Maybe he 2-pieces Standy, I don't know, but he for sure gets that kill on attach if he doesn't get meleeed and his aimer doesn't fly to the air. So I mean, I would be losing full if I was Illy. He spiked his headset, his controller, so he definitely did lose full. But I mean, I don't know if it was a heads up play by Standy meleeing him or if it was like a panic knife situation. I'm assuming probably the latter, probably a panic knife. But Minnesota iced up. They clutched up. And I mean, you also have to give them credit. They kind of, I mean, the overall slaying numbers are pretty even in this series, but Attach had his typical like 0.9. Standy was a 0.98. It's kind of shocking to see both subs in their team below a 1 KD, but they ice up. They win 2 search and destroys. I'd expect nothing less from Minnesota.
Yeah, obviously gonna shout out the rocker. Just a gutsy win. Probably wouldn't happen again. The majority of the time that they get put in that situation. Being I guess like 80-ish points down in the hard point 2, needing to rattle off that and then search. Obviously, we know that they probably will excel in search. That'll probably be their go-to game mode when all else, fails, you would say. But yeah, I mean, I was just impressed with their consistency, I guess, over the series. I mean, the numbers were really I guess looking at the meta numbers, they're all kind of similar, except Attach did put in about like almost 2,000 less damage over the series. But obviously he's making plays and doing other things that aren't really seen in the statistics, I guess. Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely not like out there like waving my rocker flag and saying like, oh, we're the best team in the game or something, but it's good to nab a win where you probably, I guess, shouldn't have had a win. It's good.
Mm-hmm.
It's nice to steal those, and then obviously because it gives you a little wiggle room for other matches that might not tilt in your favor.
Yeah. I also think I'll give the rocker a little extra gas because I know you might be afraid to because you don't want to sound like too much of a homer, but this dude, Major Maniac, deserves some credit. I mean, if you would have told me that Minnesota's going to take down OpTic, I would think it comes on the back of like a Standy kind of slaying out, attach, making clutch plays. But Major Maniac was the Iceman, and he was honestly probably the best player in their team in this series. And they're down 5-4, and Illy picks somebody. I can't remember who he picked, but he picked somebody that was planning on A. To make it a 2v3. I think he was alive with Scump, maybe. I can't remember what the situation was, but I know Illy and somebody were alive in a 2v4. He runs up those stairs in the back of A, picks somebody off the bomb. The guy right next to him just like doesn't kill him. He turns around, picks another guy off the bomb. I believe whoever it was, Shotzzy or Scump, gets a kill on the other side, and then it's Illy versus Major Maniac in a 1v1, and he's on the bomb, and Illy knows where he is. Major Maniac just says, screw it, and he just pushes him. Gets behind that column. Illy honestly has the better position, and Major Maniac just guns him. So Major Maniac, icy as ever. I mean, I don't know how they shouldn't have even ever gotten to that situation. I don't know how Illy got that many picks off the bomb. But then Major Maniac just ego chows him and he wins it to force the round 11. They wouldn't have even been in that situation without him. And I mean, the dude is icy. And then obviously, when it got to a game 5 in that series, after OpTic kind of choked that hard point away, I was like, well, I kind of know where this one's going. But then I thought for a second when OpTic had the 5-4 lead and the 1v1 with Illy having position that, oh my God, they're actually going to win. But I mean, you know how I feel. I say it a million times. I'll never bet against Attach in a game 5. because he's the iciest player in history. So I think we can move on, but shout out to Rocker and OpTic fans. Don't start panicking unless, I mean, if your team loses to Paris this week, it might be time to hit the panic button then. But we can move on if you've got nothing else on those two teams.
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right. So next thing we want to talk about was London. My boys, obviously we go from your boys in Rocker to my boys in London. They go 2-0 on the weekend, beating Mutineers and OpTic. I don't necessarily think the Mutineers win is as impressive because in my opinion, Florida are probably a bottom 2 team right now. But I will say the way that they beat them is pretty impressive. I mean, they 250 to 119 them in the game 1 hardpoint, which is a pretty big margin for this game to beat somebody by over 100. Then they 6-1 them in search, 3-1 them in control. Everybody on their team had a 1.3 or better, and then Gizmo with a 1.6. So they absolutely dominated Florida. And then obviously, again, we've talked about OpTic enough. Don't need to like keep harping on that point, but they 3-2 OpTic in a reverse sweep. Same thing. The players just play incredibly well together on the weekend, and London look like the team. Obviously, not going to say that they're instantly like a playoff lock or anything. It's way too early for any of that, but they look like the team that we thought. They look like they showed some of that potential that we truly thought they could have, because we knew that they had a lot of potential. It's just a matter of if they could realize it in time. And hey, to start 2-0 is big for them. They have an upper hand now to get a position in a winner's bracket at the first major, which, to be honest, that's going to be a crucial thing. If you can make a deep run the first major and kind of separate yourself out in the points, that's going to be a big deal for the rest of the year to make playoffs. So London looked very, very good this weekend.
Yeah, I was really impressed with them. And this is a team that we were pegging as, a late bloomer, somebody that, we were hoping wouldn't fall too far behind at the beginning of the game when it comes to, total CDL points and stuff. And we were hoping that, they would stick close and then maybe have a second half of the season, groundswell of points. But really impressed with their, they quickly dispatched Florida. I mean, I don't think that was too much of a surprise once they kind of got rolling. I think I did pick, Florida in that match, but anyway,
Yeah.
Quick work of them, and then, caught OpTic Texas out. Gizmo really showed up this weekend. Put in insane numbers when it comes to slaying, at least across both series. I was really impressed with him. Really impressed with the whole team. Like I said, I don't know. Maybe they're kind of rewriting the narrative that we had kind of set for them, where they were going to be this late bloomer and they're going to be an early starter. Like maybe they're going to just like run out in front for run out in like the top 6-ish, top 5-ish in points and just kind of hold on. But big props to London. I don't think they put a foot wrong this weekend.
No, and like I mentioned, that Florida match wasn't just a 3-0. That was like a stomp of a 3-0. Like that wasn't even close. That looked like a pro team playing against a bottom amateur team. I mean, that was an absolute beatdown. Granted, it is against Mutineers. Like I said, I do think they're one of the bottom teams right now, but they also beat OpTic, who I guess, like we mentioned, is 0-3 on the year. But I think that everybody will say, no matter where that OpTic team is at, that's a team of 4 very talented players. So to beat them, especially being down 2-0 and having the composure to come back, is a big win and a good win. But I'd agree. I have nothing else to say about London besides the fact that I'm proud, because I've obviously been a person like you are with Minnesota that's been riding with London the whole offseason. I've been hyped to watch them play, kind of like a pseudo fan of them this year, jumping on their bandwagon and having faith in my boy Afro, and all of them looked absolutely fantastic. Gizmo, especially for a new player with a 1.63 in that Florida series. I mean, they honestly look unreal this weekend. Hopefully they can continue that. Because the league's going to be more fun if they're a good team, because we know how rabid those London fans can be. And I mean, we'll talk about their matches later, but they have 2 winnable matches this week against Minnesota and LAG, not like absolute world beaters by any means. So there's a chance that London could really position themselves well and have a top seed going into Major 1.
Yeah, I mean, it's really just, I don't know, like I don't want to get too out in front and get like super high on this team exactly. Because I could see them, being more of like a mid tier,
sure.
bottom tier team, but like really encouraging stuff, like I said. So more will be revealed. And I did say in the preseason stuff that I really wanted this team to be good. I wanted this team to do it for the fans and stuff, for the EU fans in particular. So I'm happy that they got out to that 2-0 start, and maybe they can make some noise at Major 1.
Yeah, and I think something you said there is really important. You don't want to get too high on this team, but I think that's important for every team. I think it's after a week of matches, I think it's important not to get too high or too low on any team except for I think maybe Surge or a team that like compared to where we had them because we were cautious with them last week, putting them around like the middle of our power rankings. I think it's finally time to like start moving them towards the top at least for the time being and maybe bumping them up a little bit extra than what we had. But I don't think you want to overreact too much. To teams maybe going 0-2 like OpTic or teams going 2-0 like London. Maybe you bump them up a little bit in your confidence or bump them down a little bit in your confidence, but you don't just instantly call a team that you expected to be great like OpTic terrible or a team that you expected to be maybe more bottom like London fantastic by any means. But moving on to our next team to talk about, we'll maybe pair in New York with them a little bit since New York, we didn't really have anything great to say about them after this weekend. But Surge, they go 2-0 over. I mean, I know New York struggled, but it's a team with Crim and Clay and Hydra, like a team with a lot of talent. They beat them, and then they beat Ultra, who we arguably think are maybe one of the best teams in the game, top 2, top 3. They're one of the better teams, regardless of how they look this weekend. And Surge go 2-0 over them. Which is, I mean, it sounds so weird to say that we're saying Surge is 2-0 in anything because it's their whole history has just been them losing every match. So it's crazy to think that they're a top team, but Surge look great this weekend. I know we said last week that we were both buying the fact that Sib is potentially the rookie of the year, but man, we might have to reevaluate that as my thought for this weekend. This dude Sib was unreal. I mean, Pred was fantastic as well, but Sib was unreal this weekend.
Yeah, really, just crazy matches for the for Surge this weekend. Like Sib just came out of the gates flying. In that Ultra match, he drops a 1.4. I mean,
Yeah.
12,000 plus damage, just
And
crazy.
1.37 in the New York series.
Yeah, just I mean, he didn't put a foot wrong. In the post match reaction, like he was just like staring at the screen. I'm like, dude, like accuracy just like ninja defused that bomb, and you're just like sitting there like he like blank stare. I don't know if he was like having a stroke or something, but I don't know, just yeah, I mean, I think we were talking about like Sib versus Pred for Rookie of the Year. I think it might be 2 Rookies of the Year on the same team, which is just nuts to think of in this age of Call of Duty. But yeah, I mean, they pull it out against Ultra in a game 5, round 11, nonetheless. Just wild matches.
Wild.
Up there for potentially we could react and say this is the best team in the game. Might be a little bit more reserved,
I'm
but
as well.
they're
They're
gonna
up
be
there.
up. They're gonna be up there when we get to our power rankings. They're gonna be up there, and
Yeah.
especially playing 2 matches. It's not like it's one. It's not like they only played 1 match and we only got to see like a small sample size. Like they played 2 matches and they're pretty convincing against two pretty strong teams. We would say obviously subliners didn't really have their A game by any means, but we got to see them play 2 full matches. So interesting to
Yeah.
hear if you have anything else on that.
I 100% agree with you that we've got to start putting them towards our top teams. I don't know after like one weekend if I'm ready to say they're the best team in the game, but they're certainly at least in the discussion, which I think we would agree, everybody in the community would agree is faster than we thought this team would be able to get to the point where they're even like in that discussion for the top couple teams. We knew that they maybe with Sib and Pred and the Young Guns had the potential, but I don't think anybody thought after week 1 of the regular season matches we'd be even considering them as a team that could fight for the top spot in the league. So it's kind of crazy to think that they're up there. They look unreal this weekend. Obviously, they were up 2-0 on the Ultra and looked like for a second they were just going to beat them down because they beat them by about 100 in map 1 and then 6-1 them in the search. And then obviously they lose the control 3-2 and then they kind of got beat down on Berlin, which is we need to talk about Ultra for that. Like they are the best Berlin hardpoint team in the game, I think. To be honest, I think that might be fair to say. Like they look unreal in that map. And then obviously accuracy ninja diffuses in a round 11. You just cannot let that happen. But Surge, if they would have closed this out in that game 3 control, it'd have been like, holy crap, this team is unreal if they would have 3-0'd Ultra. But I'm kind of looking through the stats too. Sib went 36-17 in that map 1 against Ultra for a 2.12. I mean, the dude was just frying. He's absolutely unreal. I think he's the new like flipped above Pred for Rookie of the Year favorite because he kind of had like a signature weekend this weekend in a signature series against Ultra. But yeah, I got nothing but good things to say about Seattle Surge, and I can't even like express to you how hyped I am at the fact that the Surge go 2-0 this weekend and London go 2-0 because these are two of our teams that we were like, yeah, they could be good this year, but like we need to see them see them start hot early and hopefully not dig themselves too big of a hole. And they both came out of the gates firing on all cylinders. And then maybe some of the teams that struggle this weekend, like Ultra doesn't win a match. Obviously, they only have the one and it goes round 11. OpTic doesn't win a match. Both go round 11. Like we expect those teams to turn around. So the fact that some of the teams we were questioning look so good early, like Surge, has me very excited for them. All right. Kind of on that same vein, we can talk maybe a little Ultra and NYSL. I don't really have too much to say about Ultra. I mean, they were down 2-0. They showed the composure that we know they always should. Like the timing they got to just not check that ninja diffuse was like so unfortunate. I feel like 9 out of 10 times they win that round, and Kleenex probably checks it on time. He checked it like a fraction of a second too late. So I don't have too much to say on them. But New York, on the other hand, boy, they not only go 0-2, but they lose 3-1 to Gorillas, 3-0 to Surge. They get curb stomped by Surge. I mean, in terms of slaying wise, nobody on the team had a positive KD. Crim was the closest at a 0.97. They look rough. And then against Gorillas, Hydra was like on an island by himself, 99 kills. Second on his team was 80 for Crim. He was the only guy above a 1 with a 1.14. Crim was second on the team with a 0.83. New York, they got to figure it out because I would say LAG and Surge are like Surge are definitely like one of the more talented teams in terms of slaying. So to get outslayed by them isn't crazy, but how heavily they got outslayed is alarming. And then LAG, once again, a talented team, but I wouldn't say like their talent level is like miles above that of New York. And they absolutely destroyed them in the slaying category. Like it wasn't even remotely close. So kind of scary for New York going forward. I'm a little concerned, but once again, it's a Clay and Crim team. So not like overly just panicking, but I'm a little concerned for them. I'd like to see them turn around sooner rather than later because it's alarming to see them go 0-2 in kind of dominating fashion.
Yeah, definitely on the maybe hitting a little bit of you know, not panic but like concern for
You're worried.
NYSL. Obviously they're talking about, like, all right, I guess I shouldn't mock it that they got COVID, and then Neptune like had some hangnail infection or something. So, it just seems like they're getting a lot of these like little inconveniences. They're not able to scrim. Hydra was back in France for the holidays, so they took like 3 weeks off, but other teams didn't take 3 weeks off. I mean, so I'm not gonna say that's like a excuse for them to abdicate any kind of responsibility for winning or losing. Like obviously you got to own your crap, and if
Yeah.
they're gonna take 3 weeks off and then come back and be like, oh, we're just so like dog. A lot of stuff that Crim says that I probably won't repeat on the podcast. He's like, we're crap. We're not playing well. So I mean, put your nose to the grindstone. I mean, we know that they have a great staff. They have Bobble and Revan, and so I mean, a lot of they have good staff behind them. They hired some they hired like Hydra's guy that was going to be like a player development coach or something. He's gonna like make sure that everybody's got their mental stuff right. So it's like they have the staff. We know that they're a good org. They just got to start putting the results together and playing well. I guess it sounds more simple than it probably is. This is a team that we thought obviously it's a Clay and Crim team, so their floor should be pretty high, but we might be seeing their ceiling be a little bit lower than we thought, but at the same time, it's hard to discount, them just like flipping a switch and coming back and, just dominating the league for a little bit, So like we saw last year with NYSL, and, Clayster turned up and looked like he was the best, for me at one point in Cold War, he was in the top. He was in the discussion for like MVP. That's how good this team, turned up to be. And now they added Crim6 and Neptune. Like, are you kidding me? This team could instantly just like flip the script and we could have them at like number 1 or number 2 in the power rankings. I could definitely see a world where that happens.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I'm still a little panicked on New York. No, I shouldn't say panicked. I'm a little worried about them because to lose a match is another thing, but to get outslayed so heavy, like I said, is another thing. But one other thing I want to mention before we move on to our next couple storylines is Surge. I know you're not like a huge stream watching guy, but I don't know if you heard about it or not. I kind of forgot to mention this before the podcast when we were talking about our topics, but I'm about to say Sib. Pred streamed during like the OpTic Rocker match, and he was like doing a watch party, and then like he stayed on. Apparently, I didn't stay up that late, but apparently he stayed on till like 5 a.m. People were throwing subs at him left and right. Somebody, like one guy, even gifted like 150 subs or something. Somebody said, and people were like piling in his stream like it was an OpTic stream with the numbers he was doing, and people were like so entertained. This guy was hilarious. Everybody was like loving him. He is like natural in the content game, like charismatic, funny. He knows what he's talking about, obviously, when it comes to Call of Duty. And like people were like loving being in his stream. And like after that, people are like, this dude might be like the heir apparent to Scump in terms of like a player with high skill level and how entertaining and good he is in content. Like after last night, I'm also like a huge Pred fan because obviously the kid is disgusting on the game, but like out of the game, he's super good on stream. Looks like he could be super good in content. Like this kid looks like he might be one of the guys to carry the torch. If he can continue his level of play in the game, he might be able to be a guy that can help carry the torch of content and popularity because he was unreal and people were like falling in love with this dude on stream with like how good he was. So shout out to Pred for turning on the stream, doing some individual content, doing his part because we always ask players to do that and we always want players to do that. So when somebody does and does a fantastic job, we got to shout him out. So shout out to Pred. People are like falling in love with the kid and looks like he could be a potential guy to help carry the torch of the league popularity going forward.
Yeah, I did not know that he had his stream on, or I guess a lot of these players they do stream, or they'll flip it on or whatever. But yeah, I'll have to check that out. I'll have to get in there and show some support, drop a follow.
I also think it's big because he's an Australian player too, so like an international player that can maybe bring some more eyes from around the globe, potentially not, because typically the most popular players are always an NA guy, but him being such a good player and such a charismatic player coming from a different country or even a different continent, I guess, not from North America, could be big for the scene. So hyped to see that. I hope he continues it and keeps killing it because it can never hurt to have another player getting popular on YouTube, on Twitch, on Twitter, on any social media. It can never hurt to have another player getting popular, and maybe he can kind of become the poster child like the Australian Scump and have a whole country behind him. Australia, New Zealand, that whole region, have them behind him. So that'd be big to see. All right, next topic here, we got Faze goes 2-0 on the weekend, but a little bit of a scare. They get pushed to a game 5 versus Paris, which I don't think anybody expected that to happen. And they lose the map 1 to Thieves, and everybody was a little shook. And then they rattle off 3 straight and kind of honestly bury them and dominate them on the bow cage, a hard point, which we can maybe do a little bit of a dive into because it was a very, very interesting way they played that bow cage hard point. And Chance did a fantastic job highlighting it on stream. But Faze, they go 2-0. I don't think anybody's shocked by the fact they went 2-0, but maybe a little shocked. They went game 5 with Paris, huh?
Yeah, you were getting pretty high on Paris, or you were saying you need to throw some respect on Temp and John.
You do. You specifically do need to throw some respect on their name.
Sure. I'll give you that. That's fine. They went 0-2.
I mean, Temp had a 1.28 against Simp and Abezy, who both went negative, and John had a 1.12. And I mean, they took Faze to a map 5.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I mean, definitely. I mean, it's just like
also the top 2 Slayers in that series.
At the end of the day, results, speak. I'm not gonna be so harsh as to like not give any credit, but it's like, you get 0 CDL points for that stuff until we start counting map wins as CDL points or something like. But yeah,
I mean, if that were the case, I'll be interested to see where you have Ultra in your power rankings because they went 0-1. So we can't give them any credit for losing a match.
Yeah, we're getting into semantics now. But yeah, I mean, Faze obviously picked up where we thought they should. 2-0 on the weekend. A little shit. I mean, obviously, honestly, shaky, I guess, and getting pushed by Legion. I'll give more credit to Legion on that. Props to them for putting up a fight and making it at least interesting. Um, we didn't. I think we both predicted a 3-0, or maybe you predicted a 3-1. But when you get a result like that, pretty impressive. For Legion, I should say, and you know, Faze kind of just like a little bit iffy. Obviously, you said Abezy, Simp go negative, while Cellium and Arcitys go positive. But then they found themselves later in the weekend. Dispatched of LAT. With relative ease. I mean, yes, they did. Drop a 2 point Tuscan. 248 to 250, and then
Yeah,
rattled off a 6-4 search, 3-0 control, and then pretty handily dominated that last
they
rotate.
dominated that last map.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you had Cellium plus 13 on the map, just crazy numbers. Yeah, I mean, so obviously still Faze is Faze. I don't think any surprise there. Maybe the early panic button people were saying that Faze might not be the best team in the game, and I think there's an argument that they're not.
Yeah,
Especially through
closer to
one,
normal.
especially through 1 week. But yeah, I mean, good results for Faze. I mean, we'll see. I mean, and this is a team that everyone has super, super high expectations for. So anytime that they're not, 100% perfect, people are gonna, micro criticize. And I guess the same kind of goes for OpTic too. I mean, it's like they get, put under a microscope where other teams might get passes. So, um, yeah, I'm not gonna overreact or underreact. I guess I'll just keep it even keel for Faze there.
Yeah, I will agree. I think I honestly think that their match against Paris deserves more credit towards Paris than it does for hate on them. Because I think maybe they came out. I obviously don't know this, but I can imagine being a team of Faze's caliber and knowing that Paris is probably the 11th or 12th team in the league. Uh, Coming into that match, maybe they were a little bit less fired up and locked in than they should be. They get off to a slow start. Obviously, Paris wins the map 1. And it's like, wait a minute here, we just lost the respawn of all modes that you'd think Paris would be able to take a game off Phase. You'd probably figure it'd be in a search and destroy. They do their homework. They study a little harder. They're able to take a search. You wouldn't think that Paris would be able to take 2 respawns off Phase. Uh, I think that a couple interesting takeaways I have from Phase. I also still think best team in the game, or at least right up there. Like, I don't want to overreact. Or just not give enough of a reaction. But I do think it's an interesting note, and this is something uh, that I believe it was Chance or Nameless. I can't remember who made the point on the broadcast, uh, but it's very interesting to note that they lost both Gavutu respawns, and I think that Paris maybe showed people a potential formula for success against FaZe. Because if you notice going into that next series against Thieves, like you mentioned, they don't play Gavutu in either of the respawns. Uh, or I guess any of the 3 respawns. They actually played 2 hard points in that series. I think it's interesting to note. I liked what they mentioned that on Gavutu, you really can only run 1 sub. And I think anybody will agree with the fact that Simp and Abezy are probably still the best sub duo in the game, regardless of how they've been this year. I think it comes down to it. If you're picking 1 sub duo, I think you're picking Simp and Abezy. So to take Simp off the sub and force him to use an AR. Obviously, he's still going to be gross with an AR. We know he could just slay out anything with either gun, but it maybe makes him a little more uncomfortable and he can't just fly around the map. Uh, and that's, I think, honestly, why we saw a guy like John excel in that map 1 and Temp excel in that map 1 because they weren't getting pressured so much by Simp because the amount of pressure that Simp and Abezy put on a team in a respawn when they're both able to run at you with subs is ridiculous. So when you get a more open big map where it's a 3 AR setup like Gavutu, and even on certain hills, sometimes a 4 AR setup, I think that's why we see Paris take them out in 2 Gavutu, a hardpoint, and a control map. And I think obviously teams with more talent than Paris would be able to do so as well. So kind of interesting that we're maybe seeing a weakness of Faze being that map. I mean, that map 1, John drops a 1.39 and Temp has a 1.67. And those two just get them off to such a hot start that they slay out so hard that they win the map. And then also in the control, John with a 1.39 in the hardpoint, he drops a 1.38. In that control, Temp also drops a 1.38. Those two were having their way on that specific map. So interesting to see that could be one of Faze's weaknesses. But on the other hand, while I'm giving Faze a little criticism, I got to gas them out for that bow cage setup. I mean, we've seen a lot of teams run 3 subs on bow cage, and some teams just run a 4 sub setup. Faze said, nah, screw that. We've got Arcitys and Cellium, 2 ARs, and they ran 2 ARs, and it was like, what are they doing? Everybody runs 3 or even 4 subs in this map. And clearly they look like they're setting the meta because they know something we don't. They absolutely, I don't think the scoreline does it justice. 250 to 136 does not do what that map actually looked like justice because, I mean, Bowcage is a map that like the scoreline's almost never greater than 30 because it's just so mixy and you spawn so close to the hill that you're like bound to like just find 180 points somehow because of how close you are always spawning to the hill. So to double a team up essentially 250 to 136 is absolutely absurd. So shout out to Faze. They're setting the meta for what a Bowcage hardpoint should look like. But also shout out to Paris for finding that weakness and studying up and knowing that Gavutu is a potential map they could beat them on because Paris, obviously, we know they don't have the talent to just square up straight away with Faze. But maybe show that Gavutu is a weakness for them.
Yeah, I mean, my one comment on that is like, I don't know, just like watching the stream, it was just like this game just isn't like the time to kill is like too fast, and I know there's
Instant.
been it's like every time I mean the observers have an impossible job, like they're
Oh my
trying to
God. Yeah.
capture like the best play to show on stream, and but it's like every time they flip to somebody, it's just like they're dying, and you can't even see like the gun. There's no gunfight. It's just like dead.
Mm-hmm.
And then I don't know. So I don't know. For me, the viewing experience is a little bit drawn back by that. And especially on like you have maps like Bowcage and stuff like that where it's just like head bashing most of the time. So, but yeah, I mean, interesting what you said about the Gavutu, taking one sub out of Simp's hand, and maybe that being, but if FaZe do struggle with that, then that'll just be their veto, and then they just won't play it. And
Yeah.
we know the map pool is so small that you can get away with just having an auto veto.
Yeah. I do
And
think though it could hurt them in the long run if we do add DLC maps and they have an auto veto. We know from past history, since really vetoes became a mainstay thing in World War II, that teams with an auto veto tend to struggle when it comes down to playing a team with a really wide map pool.
yeah, exactly. I mean, and this is this team I think this team does have the most coaching staff and analysts
Yeah.
investment. So, they're not going to be bad at Gavudu forever with a team that's this good with, just raw talent. So, maybe teams should take advantage of them at the beginning, maybe if they are struggling with the map, but I wouldn't count on them being bad at it forever.
No. I also do want to shout out Paris for that though, because I tweeted about it, but Paris is uh and I don't know whatever you want to say about their talent, but in terms of role versatility, I tweeted about this. They are one of the most versatile teams because they truly have 4 sub players. I mean, 4 players who are historically submachine gun players as like a primary position for them. They have Fellow really running their main and then Temp running their flex. But these are 4 players that can use a sub, so they do have that positional versatility to drop into a bow cage and use 4 subs if that's the case. And then they also have that versatility where Temp's been very successful with an AR, so has Fellow, and even Decimate. So on a Gavutu, they are a team that can pull 3 ARs out, but they're also one of the most flexible teams to be able to run 4 subs if they had to, or 3 subs with general ease, and they can roll swap if they wanted to swap Temp to the main. So I do like a couple things about Paris. I know they go 0-2, but I mean, we're expecting this team to be 11 or 12. So the fact that we're able to take some positives away from them is a big shout out. So I think we both agree Faze is dominant. I don't know if you agree with me, but I think Paris showed me enough this weekend to actually have faith. I personally don't think they're the 12th team in the game, and we'll get into that. It'll be a hot take, kind of, because maybe the team I have below them beat them this week, but we'll see when we get into that. But we can move on to Florida, who I don't really have a ton to say about them this weekend. I honestly left the weekend very down on Florida. They got curb stomped, absolutely destroyed by London, and then they beat Paris 3-1. But I mean, like we said, I think Florida and Paris are 11 and 12 right now in terms of where they rank. for teams. So I don't think it's by any means like a fantastic win for Florida. But I came out of the weekend a little bit lower on Florida. I just don't know that this team has the potential to crack the top 8. I guess they could prove me wrong because I do think guys like Sky's Awakening, even Vivid and Dave Patey, I think they do have some talent. I just think the roles are really awkward. The pacing is really awkward. And I was left with not a lot of confidence in this team coming out of the weekend. But I didn't go in with a ton of confidence. So I guess I wasn't too shocked by that.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know, just kind of you know, they go 1-1, so you can't say that it was a total loss. But there's just not a whole lot to be excited about. I mean, I guess the biggest positive you could take from it is that Skies, in the second series went pretty big. 102 and 80 over the series for a 1.28 KD. I don't know. I mean, it's just like there's not a like I don't know, just not a lot to get too excited about. I mean, they lost to a hot London team, and then they beat Paris, who are probably the team right below them in power rankings. So
Yeah.
just kind of as expected, I guess. We'll see if they tilt one way or the other in the next few weeks. Maybe they can surprise us all and win a couple of maps, or sorry, a couple of matches. They do play this coming week, Thieves and Ultra, so not an easy road this coming week.
Yeah, 0-2.
So I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I just something about this team is just clunky. The roles just like we all thought. I don't know. This team just when I watch them, I'm just not confident in them by any means. Uh I don't know. I just don't have a lot to say about them besides just unfortunate roles seem like it almost seems like everybody kind of talked about this, but it almost seems inevitable that a roster change is coming at some point for this team because the team just doesn't make sense on paper when you watch them in the game. They don't seem to make a lot of sense. Skies on the sub just doesn't seem comfortable, except for on Bocage. He fries on Bocage with the sub for whatever reason. He drops 40 every game, 40 plus, 50 plus, dropping like 1.3s on that map specifically. He's very good with the sub, but that honestly might just be because he has a ton of raw talent. And obviously, we know any player in the league could use a sub if they had to. And Sky's raw talent just shows on Bocage. But I'm very concerned. I think I'm most concerned for Mutineers, but that wasn't really new coming out of this weekend. I kind of already had that concern coming in. But on to our last little takeaway from the weekend. LAG go 1-1. They lose to Boston 3-2 and then take out New York 3-1. The Boston series was very close. If it weren't for Hook dropping a donut 0-8 in the map 5, they still took it to a 6-4 in the map 5 with Hook going 0-8. So a very winnable game, maybe if he provides any contribution. But they do fall 3-2 to Boston, who is a pretty solid team. I have some pretty positive takeaways for LAG. They lose a close match to Boston. They beat a New York team that may be struggling right now, but is a team that you can never count out with Crim and Clay. I liked what I saw from LAG. I feel like they're after that series against New York, they seem to be kind of learning the game a little bit better together. I feel like they just need to gel because they're a team that we know as long as they gel, we feel like the roles make sense and the team has the talent to do it. So we at least hope that they can get to there. And I feel like I saw enough from them to believe that they do have a chance to get there. I'm not like super, super confident in them, but I'm also not like ridiculously low on them by any means. I do think they're kind of right where I expected them to be at this point, kind of towards that middle of the pack, but I'm not like too encouraged or discouraged. I like where this team is at. I think I feel pretty good about them being able to crack that top 6 at some point.
Yeah, definitely more positive with LAG this weekend. As opposed to if they had lost both maps or
Mhm.
matches. Breach, they showed up to play. They played really well. Can't fault LAG for dropping a close one in game 5 there. I mean, it was pretty back and forth the whole series. LAG looked, pretty impressive in hardpoint. And then, Breach did pull out a search and destroy. And so the Breach won the search and destroy and control, and then they clutched. So they won 2, 3, and 5. And
Yeah.
and LAG took both hard points. So, if LAG can improve on their 2, 3, 5 game modes, I think, and continue to show us slaying power and roll like clear rolls in the respawns, then I think that they should be in a pretty a halfway decent spot at least. And
Mhm.
I wouldn't really count the win over NYSL as being like some they beat a world beater or something,
No.
because NYSL clearly have their struggles right now. Um, but getting CDL points at the end of the day is what matters. And if we want this team to stick around for champs to be top 8, if we want them to have good seedings into majors and stuff, it's getting good results like this that we would hope for them. So I took a lot more positives out of more than negatives
Yeah,
for LAG over the weekend.
I did as well, and I think to kind of highlight Boston and LAG both here before we wrap it up and kind of move towards our prediction segment. I think it's nice to see LAG winning 2 hard points. I also think it is fair to mention, while we do roast Hook for going 0-8 and kind of losing his team the map, I do think it's also important to mention, though, that he went 38 and 25 with 4K damage in the game 4, which was a close game. He kind of hard carried them to force a map 5. So you can argue without him, they're not even in that map 5. So it is important to note that while he did struggle in that, he had very good series in respawn, namely the 2 hard points. He had a 1.1 in the first one and a 1.5 in the second one. He played very well in the hard points, so got to shout him out for that if we're going to roast him for the search. But like you said, I think it was also big to see Gunless had a very good map 1 with a 40 bomb on Bow Cage, the most kills in the lobby. And then I think also his numbers in that game 5 search aren't crazy by any means. He went 9 and 9, but he had a pretty crazy 1v2 clutch, and I think maybe multiple 1v1 wins. He was kind of icing a lot of rounds, and he looked like he was hitting that ceiling that we know he could potentially hit. And then obviously ASIM explodes in that series versus New York, drops a 1.4 over the series and dominates with like over 100 kills, I think. And he looked unreal. But also on the side of Boston, a quick shout out to TJ Haley. They obviously lose the respawns. He struggles in all the respawns, which I guess, I mean, he dropped 40 on the bow cage, 40 and 34, but he really struggled in the control and the hard point. But in the search and destroys, which is where we know TJ's bread and butter is, he goes 12 and 5 on the Tuscan, 6-3 win. And then in map 5, he leads the team in kills with 9 at 9 and 6 and the most damage on the team. So shout out to TJ. He was icing up in search. Did very well on the bow cage hardpoint, but struggled in the other 2 maps. But I feel like that's kind of the it factor for me on this team. I feel like if TJ can continue to take over and search and destroy like we expect him to do, because that's what he was known for coming up, being the best search player in the game his first year in World War II. And then as things went along, people expected him to become the best search player. He kind of had his struggles here and there, but if he can continue to look like that in search and be consistently around that 0.95 to 1.05 range in respawn, I feel like he's kind of the thing that makes this team go. So pretty nice showing out of Boston here. And like you said, pretty confident in LAG. So 2 teams that I feel are sitting pretty firmly in the middle of the pack, but 2 teams that I feel pretty good about coming out of the weekend.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I guess just more, like it's kind of rare that we would say like both teams we took positives from. Uh, but yeah, I mean, I'm definitely a little bit more high on these teams after this weekend. I mean, not that it's gonna cause some great shift in power rankings as we'll get to, but yeah, I mean, like I said, good on Breach for winning their match, and then good on LAG for splitting.
Yeah. You can't go 0-2. You just did not want to come out of this weekend 0-2, and backs against the wall 0-1. They came out and they showed out. So shout out to them. Speaking of our power rankings, though, I think we could honestly go ahead. I don't think we're going to do too much debate or talking about them, but every week we wanted to at least kind of drop where our heads are at for our power rankings. I think we could just go through, list those, and then get into our predictions if you're good with that.
Yeah,
All right. So for power rankings, obviously, like we said, we're not going to get too much into like why do you have this team here, why do you have this team here, but we kind of want to see where teams are moving, and we kind of talked about this before the podcast. For power rankings, at least for now, we're doing more of if these teams played a match tomorrow. Here's where our confidence is. This is who we would expect to win. Now, obviously, like if you have a team 7 and a team 5, it doesn't mean you're not going to pick that 7 team to win in a match based on matchups. But like we're talking about our confidence level in the team right now. So for that, I think I can read mine off first. If you're good with that, I'll just go
Yeah.
12 down to 1. I think you're going to be shocked. I'll discuss my 11 and 12 a little bit, and then I'll just go through. I have Florida at 12 and Paris at 11. I know Florida beat them, so it may not make a lot of sense, and it's probably incorrect. But I don't know. I feel like against other teams, like if I had to just pick something out, um, I don't know. I just feel like I saw enough out of Paris with Temp and John really showing me that they could be slayers. And I feel like Fellow was pretty consistent all weekend. Decimate was kind of the X factor. When he had his bad maps, they lost, and when he had his good maps, they won. So I don't know. I feel like this Paris team, when I see them play more of the middle of the pack teams, they play Search and Destroy. And I know Study and Chance both mentioned this when casting them. They play Search and Destroy, the most straight up classic of any team out there. They play so together. They play so much for trades. There's almost never a situation where they're in like a 1v4 or a 1v3 because they're always 2v2s or a 1v2, or they keep it close with trades. And they play so together and so by the book that they're always going to be a tough out in Search and Destroy. And I feel like we saw some snaps out of John and Temp that show me that they can slay with some teams that are more towards the bottom, middle of the pack. So I feel like I have more confidence in Paris right now. I feel like their team comp makes more sense. They flow together better than Florida. Now, obviously, I could see the argument for Florida being ahead of them because, I mean, they did beat them. So they're probably the more logical team to put ahead of them. But I feel like against the rest of the league, I have more confidence in Paris right now. But that being said, they're both 12 and 11, so it really doesn't matter that much. Then moving up the list, I have NYSL at 10. Right now, I have no confidence in this team to win a match. I think that will greatly change, and I think they'll definitely jump up. But for right now, 10. 9, I've got Boston. 8, I've got the Gorillas. 7, I have my boys at London. 6, I have the Rocker. 5, I have Thieves. 4, I still have OpTic up there. 3, I have Ultra. 2, I have Surge. And I'm going to stick with Faze at 1.
All right. That was more time spent on 11 and 12 than I would have expected, but yeah, so I'll go ahead and read mine off now. I'll go ahead and rattle. I mean, I don't think, after 1 week we should get into too much of a debate of like, oh, like I
No,
can't believe you had this team here.
you're still figuring out where everybody really needs to settle. You're more figuring
Exactly.
out that like 3 block range where they deserve to be as opposed to an actual official order.
Yeah. So anyway, my 12th team is Legion, 11 Florida, uh 10 LAG, 9 New York Subliners, 8 Royal Ravens, 7 Boston, 6 Rocker, 5 OpTic, 4 Thieves, 3 Surge, 2 Ultra, and 1 Atlanta Faze.
Yeah, I like that. I feel like it was pretty much we were the same, except maybe like 1 to 2 spot differences
Yeah,
between a few
it's
teams.
a margin of error of like 2.5 spots, maybe
Yeah,
one, anywhere from 1 to 3 really
yeah, which
spots.
is
But
like we said at this point of the year, that's what you'd expect. You kind
yeah,
of have like a
exactly.
group where you think they fit, like a tier, almost like a tier. You have about 4 tiers where they fit, and just a matter of where you order them, where your head is at for them. All right. We can move past our power rankings. Like I said, we might get into a little more discussion on our power rankings, like maybe when we're in stage 2 or something, because obviously at that point, um, we might have a little bit more to go off of and why we have a team there and stuff. Uh, but we can get into our predictions here. Kyle has the standings from last week. I'll be honest, for both of us, it was relatively rough. Although when I'm looking at it here, Kyle only had 2 series where either the team he picked got swept or got reverse swept for the negative points. And I only had 1 where OpTic got reverse swept and I had them winning. So neither of us got many negative points, but we had a lot of series where we only got it right, no map counts. Kyle had 2 series we got the map count right. I had 1, but we'll let Kyle go ahead and talk about where we stand with our points and maybe let him remind you of how we're doing our points.
Yeah, so after week 1, the standings are myself with 8 points and Ryan with 5 points. So as a reminder, our points were awarded out 1 point for getting the result right, plus 2 points for getting the map count right, 0 points for a wrong result, and minus 1 point if the team you picked gets swept or reverse swept. So yeah, I did get a big boost at the end from Florida. I picked that 3-1 over Paris, right? And then we both picked Faze 3-1 in the series with Thieves, so we both got 3 points there. And then I had Rocker. I did have them in the 3-1, but yeah, I got the 1 point for the result, right? So, after 1 week, we're pretty close, 8-5. So, I guess that kind of transitions us into our pick'ems for week 2.
Yeah, and this should be another very interesting week because I feel like once again we're not to the point of the year where like you have your clear favorite. I mean, there are certain series obviously like I mean looking at some of the matches looking ahead like OpTic Paris, I mean I feel like OpTic should be the clear favorite. Like any phase series pretty much against non-top teams. Like you may have your teams in your mind that are the favorites, but it's not like there's clear far and away favorites in most series because we're not at the point of the year where we really know where everybody is. So should be an interesting week with the first match being Boston versus Paris, which, once again, in my opinion, is still like a pretty interesting match because I do think Boston is the favorite and probably the better team, but I don't think this is by any means like just a mark down victory for Boston.
Yeah, this opening match, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm still gonna side with Boston. I'm gonna give Paris pushing this to it'd be easy to say game 5, but I'm gonna take Boston 3-1 here.
Okay.
I just think I think it would be too poetic for it to be game 5, so it can't be. So that's where I'm gonna side with that one.
I thought you were about to say game 5. I'm glad you didn't, so that way we can be different. I am going Boston as well. You have no idea how hard it pains me to say this because I don't think I'm gonna be able to pick Paris this week. Obviously, everybody knows I'm a big fan of John and Temp, so I want to pick them so bad. But I do think Boston is the better team here, and I also think Boston is a team that I don't know if they're going to be constantly on an upward trajectory the whole year, but I really think for the first stage or two, they're only going to be getting better as Nero and Capsule learn the game and as they learn to play more as a team. Because I think they're all very hungry players. But I do think that their trajectory is going to keep going up. I also think Paris is going to go up as well, and they're going to continue to get a little bit better here and there. But I do think Boston's the better team. I think they're the better search and destroy team as well. I feel like it's going to go to a game 5, and Mr. TJ is going to have another superstar search and destroy performance. I think we're going to see a game 5 win out of Boston with a double digit kill performance out of TJ. But I think it's going to be potential to be one of the more fun series in the weekend because I know neither of them are like your top dogs, your top teams, but I think that they could provide a very fun matchup. So I'm picking Boston 3-2, but I'm very excited for this one. All right. Next match, we've got Minnesota Seattle. Uh, Another one that I'm really intrigued for. This slate of matches on Friday is honestly awesome. I'm really excited for it. Minnesota Seattle. This is a tough one because obviously, like we said, you're gonna have some maybe favorites. I feel like Seattle's got to be the favorite, but Minnesota, you can just never count them out with how clutch they are. So obviously, Minnesota's your team. So maybe I'll let you have the floor first for this one. Do you think it's going to be Seattle, or are you going to ride with your boys at Minnesota?
Yeah, this is tough for me because I definitely went against the tide last week with picking Rocker over OpTic. And it paid off. Uh, the no quit attitude in Rocker is really an intangible that you can't put a number on it. You can't exactly
Mm-mm.
say what it is, but it's just I don't know. Coming up against Surge, it's so hard to pick against him right now, and I feel like you know Surge are just doing such a good job of exposing your weaknesses right now in the game. Um, that I think where OpTic failed to expose the weaknesses, I think Surge will just capitalize that much more this weekend. Unfortunately for my rocker, I'm gonna have them only taking the search and destroy and losing in the game 4. So give me Surge 3-1.
Darn, I'm going to agree with you on this one. At least we had a different map count in the first one, but I'm going 3-1 Surge as well. And I went against myself last week with the OpTic Minnesota match, and I said, "Man, I'm picking OpTic in 5, but if this goes 5, I have almost no confidence in them, and I should just listen to that because obviously it did go 5, Rocker won. But in my opinion, if this does go to a game 5, Minnesota are winning it because, like I said, I'm almost never going to bet against Minnesota in a game 5. I've doubted attach in game fives before in history, and then he just constantly won every single one he was in. So I refuse to ever doubt him in a game five again until I actually physically see the other team hit the sixth round, even if it's 5-0. I'm never going to doubt the dude. I mean, for God's sakes, he was down 4-0 in a series in a grand final last year, and he won it. So it's tough for me to ever pick against Minnesota just because I do think they're so icy. But Iceman is on the other team. Accuracy, I think Seattle are so red hot now. I think it's really hard to pick against them until we see them lose or maybe play a phase or something like that. It's very hard to pick against them with how hot they are. So I'd agree. I'm going to go 3-1. I do think Seattle is just going to flat out outclass them in the respawns. I 100% agree with your take. I think it's going to be a 3-1 Seattle through 3 respawn victories. Although I do see a way that the Rocker could win a control, but I think for sure, no matter what way the series goes, Surge are going to take both hard points to at least force a map 5, but I lean towards the fact more that they're just going to win all 3 respawns. So I'm going 3-1 as well. All right. Next match, Toronto versus LAG. Man, this one is tough, and I just really want to pick LAG because I have kind of been a person that's wanted to keep the faith in them this whole year, but I don't think I can do that. I think I've got to stick with Ultra. Ultra have been like the heart attack kings this year. They've been making their series go the distance, or at least been in very close series. I think that's going to happen in this one. I'm going to pick another 3-2. I obviously picked a 3-2 in that first series. I'm going 3-2 Ultra here. I think this series has a chance to be extremely tight in the respawns because I do think Gorillas are only going to continue to improve. But I think Surge are just a class above them in Search and, or not Surge, excuse me. Ultra are just a class above the Gorillas in Search and Destroy. So I think they're going to go to a map 5 and be able to take it. But I think Gorillas are going to impress us in this series and put up a good fight.
Yeah, this is a an interesting one where you think like, oh, is LAG going to continue the positive momentum that they have from week one, or are they just going to revert back to like, oh, like might be a little bit slower to start, and still finding out how to play fundamentally correct for their ideal position players. And Ultra obviously their one match last week they did lose to Surge, so have to keep that in mind too. Maybe they're not. Who knows? I mean, these are just thoughts that come into your head when you're going through a pick, and you have to predict the map count and stuff. I think I'm gonna side with you though. I'm gonna take Ultra, and I don't want to say another 3-1. I'm gonna say 3-2 because I think Ultra are just really good and really good in the search. So they're gonna. I think it's gonna be a pretty convincing, like maybe like a 6-1 or a 6-2 search to end it.
Yeah.
It won't be too close, but that's just my like micro pick. Like I have to say something that's gonna be like unique. So remember that.
I I'll mark that down, but also I want to say after talking about these two teams in back-to-back matches, and we're about to touch on one of them again, I just want to see like 1,000 Minnesota versus Ultra matches. I don't know. Obviously, that crazy comeback happens last year, but I feel like these two teams just think about Search and Destroy on a higher level than the rest of the teams. I mean, like, I'm a Search and Destroy purist. I had this in my head that I wanted to mention this while watching that Minnesota and OpTic match, but I kind of forgot to talk about when we did. But like, my God, watching Minnesota play Search as like a person who loves Search and is like basically like study Search every game. I try to like study strats of teams and like come up with strats while I'm playing GBs with my team or playing some ranked play and stuff, or just like playing any kind of like Search and Destroy channels. I just like love to study the game and like study Search and like watch VOD of the teams and just like learn everything about the ways to play Search. And Minnesota are just like ahead of the curve, and Ultra are like right up there with them. So I mean, we need so many battles of the North this year. That rivalry, funnily enough, how it was kind of forced in that first year, has turned awesome. So I'm so excited to watch this series. I'm just always excited to watch Ultra and Minnesota and Search and Destroy because they're on another level. But going into Saturday, our first match of the day is Minnesota versus the London Royal Ravens. Gosh, this is another interesting one. This is like, I feel like we're like almost forced to like place a wager on this, even though I think we're both going to side with the same team. Cause like, this is the team that I've been standing for this offseason, the team you've been standing for. I'll be honest. I think you've got the upper hand in this one. I think if we were doing a spread, I deserve some points given to me or something. Cause I think Minnesota are the favorite. And I'm going with Minnesota in this one. It's a really tough one though because I feel like I want to give London the upper hand on the respawns, but Minnesota, as always, the upper hand in the search. So I'm kind of deciding on what I want to go for map count. So I might let you go first, but I definitely am giving London a map. Obviously, I'm just trying to decide between a 3-1 and 3-2 right now.
I'm gonna go Rocker 3-2.
Okay.
I think that London might have some more firepower in maps 1, 3, 4. But
For sure.
Rocker will probably win both searches, and then they'll find a way to either take one of the hard points or control. And I like you said, I don't think we can bet against Rocker in a game 5. So yeah, and I just can't possibly see them. I can't stomach them possibly losing 2 matches this weekend. So or this coming weekend. So I have to give them this one.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree. He went 3-2. I really want to go 3-2 as well. I think I am gonna go 3-2 because I do have a lot of faith in London. I feel like out of 3 respawns, they're gonna be able to take 2 of them. I don't think they're gonna be able to take a search and destroy. Really, the only way I could see them taking a search and destroy is like if Zero is able to dominate the sniper battle against Attach if they're on a certain map, which I don't see happening. But that would be the way I feel like if London's able to win, is Zero kind of takes over one map with the sniper and really kind of like shuts down Attach because obviously Attach is the guy that snipes on Minnesota. We know how much impact he has in search. But when he has a sniper out, that's the one time he might not be able to have as much impact as if they're able to take him down and Zero's able to win that battle, pick him off a couple extra times, take him out of the round, and maybe potentially sneak out a search for London. That's like the one way I could see them taking him out. But I'm going 3-2 Minnesota as well. Uh, you said you don't want to see Minnesota go 0-2. I don't know. I picked Surge in that one, but I still really feel like Minnesota could win. I think they might have a 2-0 week. But like you said, it's almost impossible to pick a game 5 with Minnesota involved and not take them in that game 5. It almost feels like teams have to beat them in 3 or 4 games in order to take them out because it just feels like if they get to that map 5, obviously at some point this year, Minnesota is going to lose a map 5 or going to lose some map 5s, but like you just feel like you never want to pick against them, right?
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Moving on. Legion versus OpTic. Uh, this match, I feel like, became a lot more interesting than maybe we thought it was when we saw it on the slate for week 2. I believe this is, oh no, I guess Paris has that match against Boston, but this is OpTic's only match for the weekend, so it becomes a lot bigger match. It also becomes a lot bigger match than maybe you thought because I don't think anybody really expected OpTic to be 0-2 coming into this week. Obviously, Paris is 0-2 as well. So in terms of like standings wise, this is a massive match for both teams. If either of them want to really keep, I guess probably you can go 2-3, and like maybe a 1 or 2-3 teams will make it into that like 7-8 spot in the winner side of things. But you don't want to go 2-3. You'd like to at least go 3-2. So this is a huge match for both these teams to not fall to 0-3 and really, really be in danger of starting in losers bracket at Major 1. So it becomes a lot more interesting than maybe you thought. Uh, I'm gonna go OpTic in a 3-1 fashion. I do think Paris is gonna take a respawn off them. I think OpTic's gonna win the search. I think Paris will take uh, either that game 1 hard point or that game 3 control off them. I feel like it's more going to be the control. I think OpTic are going to win it when in a hard point, search hard point. I feel like Paris will be down 2-0, take that control, then lose in a map 4. But I would say I'm a lot less confident in that pick than I probably thought I would be coming into this week.
Yeah, obviously, if OpTic hadn't gotten off to an 0-2 start, this would be probably an easy like 3-1 or 3-0. Obviously they're struggling to find their form in some regards, but in others, it's like they really did look dominant for the most part, except for having a couple gunfights go the other way and then losing in 2 round 11s. I don't know. I'm going to add a little spice to it. I'm going to say that Legion can push this to a game 5.
Yeah, I don't mind. I don't mind that.
I don't know. I mean, but watch it be like a hot 3-0 that's like a 35-minute total match or something. Just like a really quick one. But I'm gonna go the other way. I'm gonna say we might get a game 5, and it's gonna go OpTic's way.
Okay. I mean, man, if it goes game 5 again and OpTic finds a way to blow like a round 11 again versus Paris, Twitter might actually shut down. Uh, I hope it goes game 5 because Twitter will be shutting down loading into that map 5. But I hope for the league's sake. I don't want to see OpTic start losers bracket of the tournament and get bounced after one round because let's be honest, Twitter's more entertaining when OpTic's in making deep runs and stuff. So hopefully they don't fall to Paris. But I think it's a little more likely than what we maybe thought it would be when we first saw this slated as a week 2 matchup. Next match on that Saturday, I believe. What that'll be? Oh no, this is the second to last match on Saturday. Faze Boston. I'm going Faze here. I think it's going to be a 3-1. I was going between 3-0, 3-1. Uh, I do think I would probably normally pick a 3-0 because I like to pick a lot of Faze 3-0s because if there's ever going to be a team that does it, it seems like they're a decent team to put your confidence in. But I do think Boston will be coming off a win against Paris. They'll be what would that make them 2-0 on the stage? Uh, so they're maybe going to be like really motivated to beat this Faze team and potentially, I mean, if they're 2-0 coming to this match and they beat Faze, that obviously would put them at 3-0 and would maybe give them a driver's seat to potentially lock up the 1 seed or 1-2 seed going into the major if they're able to close things out in that final week. So there's going to be some motivation. Obviously, there's always going to be that extra motivation when you're playing Faze. I don't think it's going to be enough, though. I do feel like Faze is supremely talented. I think this is a 3-1 with Boston taking the search and destroy and Faze running through 3 respawns. But with the way we've seen Faze struggle and respawn, I wouldn't be shocked if Boston are able to force them at 5. But I'm going Faze 3-1.
Yeah, this is that's exactly what I'm gonna go to. I think Boston finds a way to eke a map out. Yeah, I think Faze are only gonna they're only gonna grow more powerful. Um, it's kind of like the dark side of the force. It's like it just grows more powerful over time.
Yeah.
Faze finding their footing. Uh, they're gonna have more confidence after starting off 2-0. Um, this is Faze's one match of the weekend, so they have all week to prepare for Boston alone. Um, I think that spells some misery for the breach here.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go 3-1 as well. I can't say 3-0 quite yet.
Yeah. So we're both going 3-1 on that one, which takes us to the final match of Saturday. You said you couldn't go 3-0, but I'm going 3-0 here. Uh, I'm going Thieves. I'm thinking Thieves 3-0 over Florida. I've talked about how little confidence I have in this Florida team. And I'll be honest, I think Thieves obviously didn't have the best showing. They lose 3-1, but they do lose to Faze. But I don't know. I feel like this Thieves team is well for sure better than Florida, but like I said, I just don't have confidence in this Florida team. Something about them just doesn't inspire confidence into me. They don't feel like a team on the map. They feel so clunky. I don't know what it is. It's like hard to put my finger on, but just don't have confidence in them, which is why I'm going Thieves 3-0.
Yeah, I'm gonna say Thieves 3-1 here. I think the online might be in their head a little bit still. I just can't see Florida dumping 3 straight maps to Thieves. Yeah, I think Thieves are coming a little bit back down to earth after the impressive kickoff classic. Um, yeah, I think it's not going to be as easy as a 3-0, so I'm going to give Florida 1 map out of respect, but I'm not as low on Mutineers as you are. I still think they have a little bit left to show, but it's not much.
Yeah, I can see that 100%. I feel like at some point I had to pick a 3-0, so I just went here because I do feel like it's certainly possible at least. All right. Moving into our set of Sunday matches. First one on the day is another one because I don't know what it is, but we haven't had like a lot of like top team versus top team matchups. Like we haven't seen like OpTic Faze or Surge Faze or even like a I guess we saw Surge Ultra, but we haven't seen like Ultra OpTic, Ultra Faze, any of those like top maybe like 1 through 4 matches this week. But this match right here is another one of those matches between Ravens and Gorillas where it's like that like 5 through 8 range where it's like it's just a cluster of teams right now that it's like where are you, like where do you fit in here, like we know you're in here but like who's the top of like this middle teams that's trying to rise into that top 4 and potentially take one of the spots of those teams. So it's between London and LAG here. Where are you leaning on this one? Because I feel like I'm initially leaning towards London, but at the same time, like this is another one of those kind of toss-up series in my mind.
Yeah, I'm gonna say, you know, I don't want to discredit London with this pick, but I'm just gonna lean towards Gorillas.
Okay.
Um, I don't know. I mean, for no good reason. It's just a gut feeling. I can't say that. Oh, Gorillas are really looking good, and because obviously we saw the Gorillas win. Both hard points and then the final search. Um, but yeah, I mean, uh, London didn't put a foot wrong, as I said earlier. So I can't really say that I'm picking against London for any specific reason either. I just have a gut feeling that Gorillas are going to find a way to sneak this match out. I fully expect this to go to a game 5 because I just can't make heads or tails of it. So you know, I don't know. That's kind of my thoughts on this one.
Yeah, I definitely don't mind that pick. My head was almost going with LAG as well. Like, I feel like London showed us more, but I was kind of like my head is telling me LAG. But you know what? We haven't had a single pick. We have different map counts. We haven't had a single pick where we're different in terms of who we think is going to win. So I'm going to go different here. I'm going to support my boys in London, like you support your Rocker boys. Uh, I'm going to go 3-1. Let's go 3-1 London. I feel like I wanted to go with LAG, but I'm going to go bold, and I feel like London won't drop 2 series. I do think they're going to lose to Minnesota earlier in the week, but I don't think they'll drop two series this week. So let's go London 3-1 and move on to Toronto, Florida, because I feel like the rest of the weekend we might go all together. So we got to at least have one match where we're different, because I think these next two we might pick together. Because I'm going another 3-0. I think Florida are going 0-6 map count this weekend. I think they're getting 3-0'd by Ultra.
Yeah, I agree. I don't have Florida having much success in this one. I'm going to take them losing to Ultra 3-0.
Yeah, I feel like that one, if obviously some 3-0 is probably bound to happen. I feel like that one's an interesting match where you probably see a 3-0 happening. Although, like we said, with how fast the time to kill is in this game and how mixy the maps and spawns and unpredictable they are, this is one of those games where it's pretty hard to 3-0 somebody just because of how close matches and maps are naturally made to be by the state of the game. All right. Last match of the week, the primetime match on Sunday, I believe. Let me look at the time slot here. I thought somebody mentioned like, yeah, this like might be going on during the Super Bowl, so very interesting scheduling from the CDL here. But
Yeah,
subliners
because the
versus
Super Bowl is
Thieves.
always on earlier, so it's usually like a 4:30 or a 5:30
Yeah, and this
start or
this one's
something.
happening at
So
what 4 Eastern is projected to start or
I don't
5
know.
Eastern. Oh no, it says all times are local, so this is in Central. So it's starting at 6 Eastern. It's projected to start then. Yeah, so the Super Bowl will be on during this match, which is questionable from the CDL to say the least. But it's New York versus Thieves. What are you thinking here? I feel like Thieves have got to be the favorite, but I don't necessarily think that they're a lock to win this by any means. Even though New York did look pretty rough in that week 1.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Thieves here. I'm gonna take a 3-1 here. I still think New York is gonna be, slow off the line. I don't know if 1 week alone is gonna get them back to, a fully functioning team. Although I do think that Crim and Clay are gonna have a lot of like piss and vinegar about getting embarrassed in week 1. Um, so maybe that would be enough to like scare straight the rest of the team. Like we don't want to endure the wrath of Crim and Clay if we lose this one and start off 0-3. Uh, so I definitely think that, I mean, especially with these veteran teams, that could be enough to push NYSL to win this. Um, oh man, I'm almost talking myself into picking NYSL now, but I'm gonna stick with my guns. I'm gonna go with Thieves, but in 4 maps. So 3-1 Thieves.
Yeah, the funny thing about you saying you're almost talking yourself into NYSL picking them is like as I was looking at this one, like as I'm looking down the predictions and this one gets closer, I'm like, Thieves are the better team. I'm picking Thieves, and as it gets closer, I'm just like, Crim and Clay really gonna start 0-3 in a stage? Like, are they really gonna do that? It's Slasher versus Crim. You know, Crim and Slasher are both bringing a little extra to this series because they love to beat each other. Like, are New York really going to drop to 0-3? And I kind of came to the conclusion that my initial gut reaction was Thieves, so I'm sticking with them. I'm going 3-2 on this one, though, for Thieves. I feel like a Slasher versus Crim series is bound to go the distance because, like I said, they want to bring out the best in each other, and so do Clay and Slasher as well. The AR battle, they like to bring out the best in each other and really fight for that title when they play each other. So I feel like it's going to be a long series. I really almost talked myself into NYSL. It sounds like you did as well, but I'm going to stick with Thieves 3-2 here because I do feel like they're the better team. All right. You got anything else to talk about predictions before we jump into a couple little miscellaneous kind of sections and wrap up the pod?
No, I'm ready to keep it moving here.
All right. So we've got kind of a returning segment. I don't know if Kyle wants to go over it because this is kind of his baby, a segment he more came up with. So a returning segment from like towards the end of last year that we mentioned a couple times as Kyle joined, but hasn't really been able to be a thing because it more relates to how matches are going specifically. So Kyle can kind of explain this hot seat cool throne segment, and then we can get into it.
Yeah, so this is a segment where obviously being on the hot seat kind of means that you're under the gun to perform. You're kind of facing the music if you don't turn it around. And cool throne would be where you're kind of you're riding pretty, you're sitting good, you've kind of alleviated any kind of questions or doubts people have on you. So it's kind of two contrasting things. So I don't know. We don't need to get into it super deep with a debate, but it's more just like a personal preference. So I guess since I explained it, I'll go ahead and lead off. My hot seat would be OpTic, Texas.
For
Uh,
sure.
I think that they had two very winnable matches. I mean, obviously Rocker you would say is less winnable than London. But nonetheless, started off 0-2. I think that definitely kind of lights some fires under the asses of the four players there, and kind of is just like, hey guys, what's going on? Like, we're so much better than this. We dominate scrims, and then we just don't show up on match day, and we play kind of like we play with our heads in the clouds. We're not, focused on what's going on. Um, so that's my hot seat. My cool throne would be the Seattle Surge. Obviously dispatched of Ultra, the boogeyman from the Kickoff Classic. Um, and starting off 2-0, just very, very sitting really pretty. I think that they have kind of they've kind of begun to silence the people that might be doubting them. I still think that since they're such an up and coming team in that regard, that they're still going to have a lot of people that are like, yeah, but can they win a major? But yeah, can they win, can they consistently seed high? Yeah, can they beat the top teams on a consistent basis? But I think that they're beginning to answer these questions. So that would
Yeah.
be my cool throne. So I'll kick it over to you.
All right. I'm glad you went with both those because I think they're both fantastic choices and they're also different than mine. So we get a little variety here. And I waiting for the Kyle rolling his eyes for my hot seat and the audience maybe as well. But my hot seat is Mr. Decimate from the Paris Legion. Um, I think that I saw enough from this Paris team this weekend to believe they have some potential, but my God, Decimate was costing. So many of the maps I watched, he's the second sub. John was piecing. I mean, the dude dropped a 1.12 versus Faze. Temp at a 1.28, like I mentioned earlier. Fellow struggle with a 0.75, but Decimate on the second sub in the matchup against the Tiny Terrors. John was bullying the Tiny Terrors in this match, but Decimate was just nowhere to be found, dropping a 0.75 on the series. He's the sub duo for John. The AR duo and Fellow and Temp look very good. Obviously, Fellow brings a lot of the communication for this team, so he plays an important role in helping them around the map. And I do think maybe the IGL role can tend to be overrated sometimes, but he does bring a lot of the search and destroy shot calls for the team, so that's very helpful. So I do think I have more faith in him to turn it around. And he also played all right in that Florida series where they really struggled. But man, Decimate looked rough in some of the maps. I mean, maybe his numbers in the Florida series won't show it because he had a 0.93, but the dude was just, it seemed like in every big moment, like I was seeing John make a play, I was seeing Temp make a play, even Fellow, but it doesn't seem like Decimate was making any of those crucial plays. And we know how many good subs there are in challengers. This guy decimates on the hot seat for me because I feel like Paris, we know that they're expected to be a bottom team, but they showed so many flashes this weekend that like, hey, maybe they could actually like battle for that 8th spot if everything was in the right place with this team. And I feel like John and Temp showed their high ceiling this weekend, and we know Fellow can get there because he's done it so many times. But Decimate, this guy, we've never really seen him be on a top team. He always seems to struggle. He came to the Pro League last year and just like quit after 1 week. Like this guy's in the hot seat for me. Like if we don't see him perform, I want to see Paris pick up a challenger sub because I feel like it's very rarely that Paris even has a chance to compete for the 11 seed, let alone maybe potentially scratching their way up into that 8-9 range. So I think he's on the hot seat because I would like to see him potentially either pick it up or move out the way for a challenger sub to come in. And then on my cool throne, Kyle will love this one. While he might have been rolling his eyes at the other one, I have the Rockers clutch factor on the cool throne. Uh, I mean, like my question for Rocker this year was with them sticking together, were teams going to pass them by in talent? And something I may have overlooked was just how icy. And I don't know how I did it again. How did I overlook how icy Dylan Attach is? The dude is the most clutch player in the world. And they just clutch up against OpTic once again. They ice up. They're down basically out of the series in map 4. They clutch up. And then they're basically down and out with Major Maniac in the worst position in a 1v1 in a 5-4 disadvantage for them. He clutches and they win around 11. Whatever attaches on a team, they always seem to win. I can't believe I underestimated them. But on the cool throne for me is that Minnesota Rocker clutch factor because I think regardless of what we think of them all year in Respawn, they are just going to be so good in search and have good enough teamwork to win respawns that they're always going to be an annoying team that's around that 5-6 range that's bound to make a run to a top 3 at some point and potentially find their way in a grand final again. So cool throne, Minnesota Rockers clutch factor. What do you think about those?
Yeah, I'm happy that you're talking about my Minnesota Rocker in a positive light. The clutch factor is obviously, probably, close to second to none.
Oh, it is second to none.
In the league. And then interesting point you bring up about Decimate with costing and uh not one I would have thought of, but I mean, are we thinking that, Paris are in the position to make a change, or is this just going to be the status quo for them?
Oh, most likely they're not making a change, but I think that like if they had a sub that could run with the way, I mean, John was showing flashes of as good as we've seen John look since BO3. Like the dude was
Right.
piecing Faze. Like if he had a guy to run with him, like Paris might be able to like make a little bit of a run at the 8th seed, or at least closer than we think.
Yeah, that's just it's tough when you have, a team kind of on a shoestring budget and they've kind of just been thrown together. We were kind of just, with Paris, we were kind of just like, oh, maybe this team can, you know, if all the pieces fall to right, that maybe they could make it work and win a couple series here and there. But uh, it just seems like, if Decimate turns up, then maybe it's going to be Fellow costing in a series and then they won't win, or maybe it would be, Temp falling off for a series or something, or John having a down series. But it's just like, it just happened to be Decimate this past weekend. So yeah, hate to see it, but I don't know.
Yeah, I can see that. There obviously is going to be a series at some point for every team where a single player does cost, but I definitely feel like Decimate is the lowest tier player on that team. So that's kind of why I singled him out because I could have singled out Fellow. Technically, KD wise, he had a worse weekend than Decimate, but I think it's been proven through the success throughout their career how many grand finals Fellow has been in throughout his career and top finishes. I think among players at actual champs, I think he's like towards the top in like career average placing. I don't think at a single champs he's ever played in, he's finished less than 4th. Somebody could check on that stat, but I'm pretty sure I know like coming out of the Jetpack odds, he definitely had that intact. And then in World War II, he finished top 4 again with E United. So I don't think Fellows ever finished less than 4th at champs in his career. So I just tend to give him the benefit of the doubt when it comes to him versus a guy like Decimate that's never been in a top 3 situation, I don't believe. But we can move on to another segment we did a little bit last year, another short one. But who won the week? this week for you. It could be a player, a caster, a team, a personality in the scene, basically anything from this weekend that you want to mention. Who won the week for you? Because I have one, so I can go first if
Yeah.
you're still kind of deciding. But for me, I think like the broadcast team won the week. Uh, I think often we like to criticize the production, we like to criticize stuff that goes on, but I think when they deserve some gas, they deserve it. Obviously, we're working without Maven and Merc. That this doesn't change the fact that I think they did a good job this week. Doesn't change. We still need Maven and Merc back. That is an absolute must. But maybe for some of you newer fans, I'm not sure how much you know about Ton and Bryce, but they're like long term OG. They've been around casting like the Bravo, the Charlie, the Delta stream for years. Not really like the mainstream, but they've been casting some of like the side matches and the other pool play matches on streams for the CWL and stuff for years. They're both great casters. Obviously, we still want Maven and Merc back, but those two are very good at what they do. So that was a W for the broadcast team. Also, Esports Engine, I tweeted about it. Besides maybe a couple delays when like a Scump legs out of the map or a player's having a tech issue, matches were starting at 2 o'clock Central Time. You turn on the stream, there's a little bit of pregame at like 2:02 Central Time. Boom, they were into the match. Like map was starting, like they were starting right on time. In between series, they talked about a little bit, talked about the next series. Boom, right about on time. They were starting. Like they were much more on a tight schedule. Things were getting kicked off faster. Veli did a fantastic job on the desk. Cat is very good on the desk. Nameless good per usual. I think Study and Lando have taken strides, especially Study has taken strides and become a better caster this year. Obviously, Chance and Miles were fantastic. I think just overall production team during the middle of the map, they're showing like this guy has this. They're showing detailed stats after the series. They're showing detailed stats about this is the team's hold percentage, how much they hold this hill, like of how many times they've played bow cage. They hold this specific P2 45% of the time or whatever, specific stats on the screen. Like, and I'm a stats person. I work a little bit in stats and esports on the side. Like that's something I love to dive into. So like the production team did just an absolutely fantastic job from Esports Engine to the on-screen talent. They just did an absolutely fantastic job.
Yeah, I mean, gone are the last 2 years of I could if a match was gonna start at like 4 p.m. or something, I could, comfortably get on at like 4:30 and the match would, still be loading in. We'd still be in the, watching ads and listening to like, the game fuel keys to victory and just all these like ridiculous things that, just detract from the game. At the end of the day, when you're delaying the broadcast by that long. So I definitely do appreciate the punctuality more than anything. I mean, this past weekend, I really I did struggle. I was like, because naturally when I see the matches starting at this time, I'm like, okay, well, if I'm a half hour late, then I'll be right on time. So
yeah, not the case anymore.
Yeah, so big props to Adam Apicella, Esports Engine, and the whole team over there for prioritizing that, because I think that really shows that you care about your viewership and that you're I think time is the most precious resource, and if you're taking away a half hour for ads and pregame stuff and really just detracting from that, then I think that you're kind of doing a disservice. So big props there. My who won the week. I think this player, for the first few weeks has been kind of, he's been hyped up, but other people are saying that his duo was really the one to be looking out for, and he might very well still be. But this guy really showed up in the last match of the week. Or his team's last match of the week, I should say, and kind of made a statement showing for why he might be in consideration for Rookie of the Year, and that would be Sibilance. Sib. 1.4 in the last series against the Ultra. Just crazy numbers like we were saying earlier.
Yeah.
And a lot of the hype was going towards Pred, Rookie of the Year, Pred this, Pred that. And Pred is still very, 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 very good at this game. But Sib's making a play, and he's getting some gas in the timeline I'm seeing and stuff. So yeah, I mean, if this team could have, like I was saying earlier as well, if this team can have two potential rookie of the year candidates, running on this one team and they're playing so well, wow, this team could really, smash through the ceiling here.
Yeah, and I mean, 100% Sib was, I mean, I think it's pretty well known. He was pretty much the best player this weekend, like the best player of the weekend, like you mentioned. And obviously, Pred also one of the top rookies, if not one. He's number two right behind his teammate. He's right up there. Uh, Accuracy, obviously, the Iceman with that diffuse and leading the way. But I think Mac also deserves some credit. I wanted to shout him out at some point in this podcast, and I haven't. I think he deserves some credit too because he is just consistently running with Pred as that second sub and just putting up numbers, and he's such a good player. And I feel like it's underrated how much success Mac has brought his team since he joined. He joins on NYSL partway through the MW year, instantly turns the team around. It was an online home series. They still win an event and become just a more consistently good team than they were without him. And then last year on NYSL, obviously on a team that wasn't expected to do so much. For a while there, they were a top team, even made a grand final. They were very overall successful, and now he's on this team again. It's not a coincidence that every team he's been on has seen success with him. He's a very good player, so shout out to him as well. Um, Something else for Sib. I think it's an interesting comparison. I heard it on the flank from Zuma, and it was actually something I was thinking as well. Um, Sib's gameplay style reminds me a lot of Pharaoh. Rest in peace, F3. His gameplay is a lot like him. He's that flex that you 100% feel confident in him using an AR, 100% confident in a sub. You can even argue he's better than a lot of subs, and he's also better than a lot of ARs. When he uses each of them, you have unlimited confidence in the guy. He ego chows a lot like Pharaoh did, and you just know gun skill wise he can go toe for toe with anybody in the league. Um, and Pharaoh could be a little hot headed at times. We know Sib can be a little hot headed. Just like overall, the two remind me of each other. Rest in peace, Pharaoh, one of my favorite players to watch. But Sib has some flashes of Pharaoh in his gameplay. I feel like he can also pull out the sniper and be very flashy with it, which Pharaoh is one of the greatest snipers to ever touch the scope. So he reminds me a lot of Pharaoh when he plays. So I'm excited to see how his career continues. And yeah, like you said, the dude was unreal this week.
Yeah, and that's a really neat comparison there. Like you're saying, especially with the TTK in this game right now, with the just ego challenging, like you might win, a fair percentage of them. Like if you get the peeker's advantage and stuff, and you just happen to, catch somebody not expecting it, and you just ego challenge it, like wow. And like we saw with Pharaoh and M Dub, especially with that one, when Florida were on their run, uh, yeah, just impressive all around.
Yeah. Uh, so that's pretty much it for that kind of stuff. We can dive into down bad sports moment of the week. I don't know if you have too much for this because for me, the sports I mostly watch are football and basketball. Football, especially for my team, has been over for a while. For both of us, for our teams, it's been over for a while. And basketball, we're kind of in the middle of the season, and my team is basically in like title or bust mode, and they're going to make the playoffs, and it's just a matter of can they make it back to the finals. And your team is more in rebuild, like see what our young players can do mode. So like for me, those are the two main sports I watch. Obviously, I know you're a big baseball guy. The lockouts are going on, but baseball obviously isn't in its season now. So there's not too much for me. I don't know that I really have much. I might have some after the Super Bowl if I play some bets and lose them inevitably or something, but I don't have too much for this week unless you have something. Because I know Winter
Yeah,
Olympics are going on and you're big into that. So maybe you have something.
yeah. I actually, last night was the women's giant slalom. It's one of the disciplines in alpine ski racing, um, downhill ski racing, and uh, medal reigning Olympic gold medalist from 2018 and U.S. starlet Michaela Schifrin, was a podium favorite, gold medal, up there in contention to possibly win gold medal. She kicks out of the start gate for her first run. So there's two runs in these events, and kicks out of the start gate, and on the fourth or fifth gate, just completely falls on her hip and is out of the run. So I was pretty down bad about that because obviously when you have a big U.S. name like that, all the TV coverage just stops and everyone's watching it, and to have her crash out, DNF in within the first 5 gates was pretty disappointing. So kind of down bad, but she's competing in a lot of other disciplines of ski racing in the Olympics, so hopefully she'll have a chance at redemption for that. But it's ski racing's an unforgiving sport. One little
Yeah.
mistake and you're done. And 4 years. I mean, obviously they have the World Cup every year where they're racing throughout the winter, but every 4 years you get a chance to go for glory and get an Olympic medal, and you know, within a blink of an eye it can be gone. So kind of down
Mhm.
bad about that. So
Yeah, Olympics is never, like, something I've been, like, huge into. My dad was always really into it, like, especially the winter one, so I sometimes, like, watched it growing up as a kid with him, but it's, like, actually insane to think about some of the things that they're able to do. Because like, I mean, obviously the Olympics are huge on a world stage, but like in terms of sports that are really covered and watched, like in the US at least, it's mostly like you always see like football, basketball, some baseball, like those are like the main things covered. And you don't really see like a lot of Olympic sports covered. But then when you actually watch, like especially like you said, all like the alpine skiing events and stuff, it's like the slalom and everything you watch, like what these people are doing, like these athletes are doing is actually like insane. And it takes so much skill and like you watch somebody in the slalom and it's like I don't even know how it's humanly possible to be as good at it as those people are, from whatever country they're from watching them. It's absurd to watch how good these athletes are. And like every single time I watch it, it's not something I'm super into, but whenever I watch any event really in the Winter Olympics, I'm just amazed at how good these people are at their craft. So it's definitely something to watch, and obviously a lot of people love to watch it. It's the world's games, and it's absurd to watch. So yeah, I'm probably going to tune in at some point here or watch. I usually watch like highlights of the Olympics. I usually don't find myself watching it too much live, but I like to see like the highlights and stuff, and like when people make their gold medal runs and the people that win the gold. I like to watch a lot of the highlight videos and stuff. So I'm sure I'll be tuning in. But yeah, every time I watch Winter Olympics stuff, I'm just amazed at some of the stuff people can do, especially when I see people launch themselves off the ski jump.
oh
And
my
I'm just
gosh.
like first of all, like I'm a person that doesn't like heights. I've never like done anything like that. I know it's kind of shocking. I'm from Wisconsin and I really don't ski. But I like when I see people launch themselves off that ski jump, I know like if I was in midair, I would be just like absolutely panicking. Like what they do is insane.
Yeah, exactly. So, if you're listening to this, maybe give the Winter Olympics a tune in, and pull up multiple screens so you can watch some CDL as well, because I know that
Yeah,
this
CDL
weekend,
Super Bowl Olympics.
I know, geez, you're gonna need multiple TVs running.
Yeah. All right. You got anything else to cover before we wrap this one up? I feel like it was a pretty good episode discussing uh last weekend's matches. Pretty much how it's going to be from here on out, discussing the previous matches and really diving into predictions for
Yeah,
most of the
so
year.
yeah, I mean, obviously we're gonna have some longer episodes here when we're having double doses of reactions and predictions. But that's the way we like it, and we're back into competitive COD. We wouldn't have it any other way. And looking forward to sharing this experience with all of you guys, and thank you all for watching and listening. So I think that's about all I have. You want to pick us out here?
Yeah. So, like Kyle said, we appreciate you guys all listening. We're finally back into the swing of competitive COD. We kind of have a schedule in mind for what we'd like to do, especially on that like week off between the major and when the matches or when the final matches in the major actually happen. So we'll kind of fill you in on that when that comes up, as we've got this coming week and another week of qualifying matches before we somehow already dive into major one, which is just a few weeks away. Crazy to think about. But like you said, there are going to be some longer episodes coming up here because we've got to analyze what we just saw in the past weekend and jump right back into predictions for the coming weekend so we can get it all out to you with time to spare before the matches happen. So that's going to do it for this one. We obviously really appreciate you guys watching. Like always, if you're on YouTube, drop a like, comment, and subscribe. Uh, Comment down below your thoughts on the past weekend and your predictions. Obviously, like we always say, we like to read what your thoughts are because, I mean, even last week in the comments, we learned a lot of new information that I don't think Kyle or I knew. We had somebody mention to us that Neptune had a thumb infection that might have affected him. I didn't know that. I don't think Kyle knew that. We had somebody talk about Clayster saying the whole New York squad is playing from a facility together. We didn't know that. So, like, people are providing us information that we don't know because obviously we don't know everything in the scene. So, we greatly appreciate that. If you're on the audio platforms, be sure to drop a follow on there